In the midst of a global pandemic, one might think that a solution to the deadly virus would be one of the most in demand products available. However, vaccines like the upcoming COVID 19 vaccine are one of the most hotly debated topics to have come out of the current state of affairs. With so much information out there, it's important to remember that vaccines have already saved millions of lives, and it's likely some of you wouldn't be here today if it weren't for your parents who kept you safe from diseases like polio and the flu through the use of vaccines. How did vaccines become so hotly debated, you may ask? Well, the Lancet Medical Journal wrote earlier in October of 2020 that a whopping 31 million people follow anti-vax accounts on Facebook and 17 million people follow similar accounts on YouTube. The anti-vax movement is clearly stirring up some trouble. The spread of misinformation about vaccines could leave you and the people closest to you open to deadly viruses that could go unvaccinated in more people every year. And as I'll explain, the risks of not being vaccinated are far greater than the risk of being vaccinated. Today, I'm going to cover three main points. First, the problematic anti-vax movement has reached an all-time prevalence since its beginnings earlier in the decade. Secondly, you can avoid this movement and educate yourself through speaking with your doctor and also researching the types of vaccines necessary for better health, both annual vaccines and those that are needed once in a lifetime. And third, studies show that the benefits of being vaccinated are numerous and the consequences of not being vaccinated could prove fatal. Firstly, let's address the anti-vax movement. The anti-vax movement is detrimental for the safety of people of all ages and especially toddlers and those who have weakened immune systems. Anti-vax movements spread through online propaganda and seek to brainwash those that come across it. According to the World Health Organization, vaccines prevent almost 6 million deaths worldwide, most of which are children. This is a good thing, but the modern anti-vax movement seeks to uproot these strong values and take them. They've built their roots strongly in online platforms, and this allows its leaders to spread their disinformation far into many demographics, the largest of which being parents and more specifically, mothers. Mothers Against Vaccines built the backbone of early 2010s movement against vaccines, and they increased their influence by spreading false information across social media platforms. Movements like this have directly led to multiple outbreaks, including an infamous breakout of the measles in 2015 at Disneyland. Here, an estimated 125 people, most of which were children, contracted the disease, all of whom were unvaccinated for it. If a decline in vaccinations were to happen, the security of vulnerable family members would be compromised, which would lead to a world that is much less accommodating for those that are not of perfect health. Vaccines help to keep many people free from disease, but sadly, not everyone is compatible with these life-saving treatments. However, vaccines can still be implemented in the majority of the population and can sometimes be enough to wipe out a disease entirely. For an example, the African country of the Gambia had a 70% vaccine coverage rate, which was enough to wipe out HIV disease entirely. This evidence supports the fact that if most of a population is vaccinated, it automatically creates a safer space for those who are not vaccinated or who cannot be due to medical conditions. Additionally, if vaccine rates were to free fall, not only would the mortality rate for children increase, but the mortality rate for cancer patients and the immunocompromised would skyrocket. Also, say goodbye to traveling by air, as disease would spread exponentially faster on airlines, putting people of all ages at risk for catching disease. This is an extremely scary thought. However, a constant state of fear is no way for a society to progress, so let me present to you some alternatives. First, being knowledgeable about the vaccines that you need and the process to get them is simple. It can be done by easily researching the most important vaccines are for your continued good health. A simple Google search is enough to find a source that can tell you exactly what vaccines you or family members need. And an article by the CDC specifically lays out recommended vaccines by age group. Vaccines are also one of the most affordable medicines out there due to a multitude of ways to cover their costs. Thankfully, a low-income situation doesn't automatically mean that vaccines are unavailable for that household, as the Vaccines for Children movement provide free or low-cost vaccines to families in need. Most insurance plans also cover vaccines at little to no coverage cost for you and your family. And lastly, being vaccinated leads to health benefits even during the latter part of your life. Being vaccinated not only ensures that you are healthy, but that you can stay healthy. While vaccinated, you have a much higher chance of fighting a disease, and at the same time, a higher chance of protecting the rest of the population from contracting disease. With the more children and adults that are properly vaccinated, the more outbreaks are likely to be prevented. And while not every vaccine is 100% effective, having more of a population be vaccinated makes it much harder for a disease to spread and infect the rest of the public. However, if more of the population continues to not vaccinate, diseases that were once disastrous to humans could see a resurgence, and your life expectancy could likely start to deteriorate faster. Sadly, even if an individual were to survive a disease, complications could happen later down the road. Meningitis, for example, leads to ailments such as diminished kidney function and brain damage in 19% of people who survive the disease. An author from New York Magazine wrote an article providing evidence that an outbreak of measles in Washington was primarily due to the population that was unvaccinated. Now let's go over what I've covered today. The anti-vax movement will get out of control if not put to an early demise. It is simple and easy to resist this movement by keeping yourself protected from disease through the use of vaccines. And with these vaccines, we can see benefits like continued prosperity for the human race, and with the consequences, we could see its downfall. So remember, get yourself vaccinated for the continued well-being of you, the people you love, and all of society. The information I provided you all with today should put the majority of your minds at ease, and hopefully put a sense of urgency in the few of you. Before I leave, I'd like to present with you a quote that is important to remember. Vaccines save lives. Fear endangers them. Thank you.